Oh my goodness. Well, we wanted to bring you outside to talk about this next segment here. If you're planning on hiking Mount Elbert, you crazy people, this weekend, you're going to want to make sure that you pack your safety. That's why we talked to Dr. Kohli about elevation and what it can do for you, even if you're from here. Dr. Kohli, it's so great to see you. How are you?
I'm doing great, Danny. How's your summer going?
It's going great. We've been getting outside. We've been doing all of the fun things
Wonderful.
that we've been, waiting to do. But I wanted to ask you, we are getting outside, hiking, biking, traveling, doing all those things, but I still feel like even as a Colorado native, someone who's been there, I'm still experiencing altitude issues, whether it's breathing, whether it's, just not feeling great.
Yeah.
What do we need to keep in mind when it comes to the altitude, even if we live here?
Yeah, it's so important that you brought that up, because many of us don't even realize, especially because we think we live here, that when we go to higher altitudes, we go to the mountains, it really is a bit of a stress test on our body in many different ways, in our cardiovascular system, on our breathing system. So the three things I like to think about when we talk about altitude: one is the oxygen in the air, obviously how we get our body used to that.
Right.
The second is, staying hydrated, to make sure that our body has enough water to be able to compensate and do the things that it needs to do at high altitude. And the third is sun protection. So we want to make sure, because we're closer up to the sun, that we really do protect ourselves. So, a rapid ascent to altitude can actually cause something called altitude sickness, which manifests in subtle ways. Sometimes you sort of feel a little headachy, maybe a little queasy or nauseated. But inside, what's happening is actually your body's going into a little bit of a stress response. So making sure you change altitudes very slowly. So in other words, if you're driving up to the mountain, stopping along the way as much as you can, taking a little break, walking around, staying on top of that water, so that, again, you're really making sure you're giving your body the tools that it needs to fight that. And then finally making sure you have enough sun protection and reapply frequently, because when you're closer to the sun, it can really increase your risk of skin cancer.
Sure. So this, of course, is important for those of us living here who are traveling up to the mountains. Let's talk about those who are visiting, because oftentimes they don't have the option, obviously, on a plane to stop along the way. So how do we make sure that those visiting are properly acclimating themselves to the altitude when they get here?
Yeah, so again, the rapidity of the deltas, how quickly you go from sea level to a high altitude, can really predict how your body responds to it. So one of the ways in which you can sort of prepare your body ahead of time is by making sure you're getting enough sleep, making sure that you had good nutrition that day. Because one of the other things that can confound your altitude sickness is if you're hypoglycemic, or if because you need a lot of those nutrients for your body to fight that altitude sickness. And then staying on top of the water as well. So I often tell people who are visiting for hiking or for skiing in the mountains that they stop in Denver. Just for a few hours. It doesn't even have to be for a full day. But when you land at the airport, maybe go have lunch, go walk in the park, do something like that that gets you at 5280. And then take that trip to the mountains, so that you're not going directly right to Vail or Beaver Creek or wherever it is that you're headed. Because that can be a little bit too much of a delta. Now, let's say you don't have that option. You have to head straight to the mountains. Then you're really chugging that water. You're trying to get a little extra sleep as well when you're up there, so that your body has time to sort of rest and repair itself.
Yes, definitely. Well, we love you as our favorite cardiologist, Dr. Kohli, so we have to talk about our cardio health here too. What is this doing to us, being at a higher altitude, to our cardiovascular health, whether that's us living here or somebody, traveling? I know that we have trail runners and people that come out here to really experience the high altitude for training, but what is that doing for us physically?
It's really interesting, because we're being deprived of oxygen in the atmosphere. We start making more blood cells. So our blood counts are a little bit higher because we live at altitude. Our efficiency of using the oxygen is also a little bit higher. It's called VO2 max. So we're more efficient at using our oxygen. And generally, our cardiovascular stamina, compared to somebody at sea level with the same level of activity, is also significantly higher. So being at altitude chronically over time can actually be really, really good, because it causes all these physiologic adaptations that make us a little bit more efficient at using less oxygen. Now, we don't yet know if there are adverse health effects to living at altitude. We know that extreme levels of altitude can increase free radical damage. They can cause chronic oxygen deprivation of tissues, which can increase risk of things like cancers and stuff like that. We're not seeing much of that in Denver, thankfully. But skin cancer, as we talk about, because we're at higher altitude, we're closer to the sun, we have more UV exposure, can certainly be high, and we have the highest per capita rate.
Well, I want to talk to, we're talking about being outside, we're talking about our altitude here. I want to talk to you about camping. That's something that everybody's doing this summer, of course, right? Tell us about some health-related topics that we need to be keeping in mind when we're out camping.
Well, you know, the biggest one that I worry about is the bugs.
Yeah.
Especially now. We have West Nile virus here in Colorado, and so it's really important to put on that mosquito repellent frequently.
Okay.
And especially because you're staying there overnight, and so you may be exposed to the environment all night long when you can have a sort of an increased risk of mosquito bites. The other that I worry about is temperature.
Yeah.
Too hot or too cold. And so regulating our body temperature is easier to do when we're in an air-conditioned or a heated environment in a hotel room. But when we're out camping in the woods, it's actually much harder for us to do that. And so we actually have to be really mindful whether or not our body is regulating itself. And if we're older or extremely young, so kids and older people, pregnant women, they don't regulate their body temperature in the same way. So they have to be especially mindful. They sometimes don't even get the clues that they're not regulating their body temperature in the same way because their thermostat is just not as sensitive as it is for most of us adults. So those are the two big ones I would say that you have to worry about when you're camping.
Okay, well, keeping us safe this summer. Dr. Kohli, thank you so much. And guys, we're taking a quick break. We'll be right back.